The sky above planet Zalara was dark purple, with twin moons glowing faintly. Cold winds whispered over ancient stones, long buried under sand and silence. A human named Jacob Ryder, wearing a dusty explorer's jacket, crouched beside a broken stone pillar. He wiped off the dirt and stared at the strange markings carved into its surface. "Same symbols again," he muttered, adjusting the small scanner in his hand. "But this one? This looks like a sentence." No one around him paid attention. The alien workers and guards believed he was just wasting time. To them, the ruins were old junk. Only the priests and nobles ever cared about the lost language, and even they said it was better forgotten. But Jacob, he loved languages. That's why the Earth's Historical Alliance had sent him. They wanted someone who could try to read. The unreadable far behind him, near the alien tents, Sarah stood with her arms crossed. She was young, beautiful, and sharp-eyed, born into one of the noble families that once ruled this land. She only joined the expedition because her grandmother had warned her, if the dead language is ever spoken again, the stars will bleed. She thought that was just a silly legend, till today. Jacob stood up and read the carved sentence aloud slowly. Keltherai Venza. No Thor. Sarah dropped the tool in her hand. Everyone around turned. The air felt thicker. The wind stopped. Jacob looked around, confused. Did I say something wrong? Sarah walked toward him, her steps slow, careful as if she was approaching. A ghost. Say that again, she whispered, staring straight into his eyes. Jacob raised an eyebrow. It means something like, "The gate remembers the blood, I think," she gasped. "You speak the dead language of our ancestors." Blinked, wait. What? Dead language? Ancestors? Sarah looked shaken. No human, no outsider, no living being has spoken those words in thousands of years. My people erased it from memory. We banned it. And you. How did you learn it? Jacob shrugged, still unsure if this was a joke or not. Translated. It from the ruins. Similar to old proto-scripts from 3 systems over. Just basic linguistic logic. Sarah took a step back, her face pale. That language isn't just dead. It's forbidden and dangerous. Why? Because those who speak it awaken things. Before Jacob could reply, the stone pillar he had read from began to glow. A low humming sound vibrated through the ground. Cracks of light crawled across the ruins. The alien guards grabbed their weapons and shouted warnings. Then, a voice not human, not alien echoed through the air. Bloodline key detected. Protocols reactivating. Jacob's eyes went wide. I didn't do anything. Sarah grabbed his arm. You don't understand. The ruins were sealed by the High Ones, the first rulers of my kind. Only someone from their bloodline or someone marked by destiny could wake them. Jacob looked down. Strange golden lines had appeared on his wrist, glowing faintly. The same symbols from the ruins? Why is this happening to me? He whispered. I don't know, Sarah said, but we need to get out of here now. Guards began shouting, calling in to their leaders. Some of them aimed their weapons at Jacob. Step away from the ruins. One barked. He has triggered. Forbidden tech. Sarah stood in front of Jacob. Don't shoot. He didn't know. An elder priest rushed into the clearing, his long robes flapping in the wind. His face turned gray when he saw Jacob. It has begun, the elder whispered. The guards hesitated. Bring the human to the high temple, the elder ordered. If he truly speaks the sacred tongue, then the stars themselves may be watching. As night fell over the ruins, Jacob sat silently in the back of a transport vehicle. Sarah sat beside him, her face filled with worry. I came here to study. History, Jacob said softly, not to become it. Sarah looked at him. Maybe, she replied, you were always meant to be part of ours. Somewhere behind them, deep in the ruins, the glowing symbols did not fade. They grew brighter, as if something buried for centuries was finally waking up. Asterisk, the transport vehicle moved through the dark canyon like a ghost. The alien guards sat, in silence, stealing nervous glances at the human they had just arrested. But none dared speak because the ruins had spoken back. Inside the vehicle, Jacob sat hunched, staring at the glowing marks still pulsing on his wrist. They didn't hurt, but they felt ... alive, like they were watching him. Across from him, Sarah broke the silence. You shouldn't have been able to activate anything. Not unless ... double quotes. Unless what? Jacob asked quietly. Unless you carry something ancient inside you, a genetic memory, or an ancestral key. I'm from Earth, he said. The only key I've ever carried is to my apartment. But even he knew now that was no longer true. The high temple of Zalara stood like a giant black fang rising out of the desert. It had no windows, no doors. It's only a slit in the front that shimmered like water. This way, one of the temple monks said. Jacob stepped forward, unsure. As he passed through the entrance, shimmer rippled, and the glowing marks on his wrist flared bright gold. Sarah followed. More anxious than before, inside the air was heavy. Not with heat, but with memory. Symbols danced across the walls. Shifting like clouds, architecture felt alive. At the center of the great hall stood a circular platform of obsidian stone, smooth like glass. Elders in silver robes formed a circle around it. Jacob was led to the middle. One elder stepped forward. His voice trembled with age and fear. Human, speak the words again. It's the ones that awakened the ruins. Jacob hesitated. I don't know if speak them. Jacob slowly opened his mouth and repeated the strange phrase. Keltharai Venza. Nathor. The room darkened. The platform beneath him lit up. Then the walls began to move not physically, but in symbols. Thousands of glowing glyphs. Lit up in a perfect spiral, crawling like living things toward the center. What's happening? Jacob asked. The elder's voice cracked. The code is responding. From a side hall, a thin, tall alien woman entered. Her skin shimmered like pearl, and her eyes glowed like frozen fire. The keeper of the vault, Sarah whispered. The keeper's gaze locked onto Jacob. She circled him slowly. Do you know what you are? Human? She asked. Jacob shook his head. I'm a linguist. That's all. She knelt and touched the glowing marks on his wrist. These words, they're not just sounds, they're keys. Keys to machines buried in our history. Machines, even we forgot how to control. Looked up. Why are they responding to me? Because you are not just speaking them, the keeper said. You are remembering them. Suddenly, a deep vibration filled the chamber. From the far wall, a huge black slab split open, revealing a hidden chamber. Dust poured out like smoke. Inside was a glowing cube of blue light, suspended in midair. Sarah gasped. That's the prime code core, the heart of our forgotten empire. The keeper turned to the elders. It awakened because of him. But he is not one of us, an elder snapped. He has no bloodline. No history with Zalara. Jacob stepped back, uncomfortable with the attention. I really don't want to be anyone's prophecy. But the keeper's expression darkened. There was once a legend, she said, that the knowledge of the ancients would return through a stranger. Someone born far away, yet able to unlock what time had sealed. Jacob tried to laugh it off. Great. So I'm a walking space myth. Sarah stepped beside him. You don't have to believe it, but it's happening. Later that night, Jacob stood alone before the cube. The temple was quiet, except for the low hum of ancient power. He touched it. It didn't burn. It welcomed him. The cube pulsed then, suddenly shattered into thousands of tiny lights that flew into the air, forming a 3D map. A system with a red star. A name appeared in glowing text. Vor Thielen. Sarah rushed in. That's the Forbidden Star System. Our people sealed it long ago. The lights faded into Jacob's wrist.
Yes.
His marks changed, forming a new line of symbols. They gave me another sentence, he whispered. A warning. Maybe ... or an invitation. Sarah's voice was low. If Vorthelen is opening again, then the past is not dead. Jacob turned to her, now fully aware of the weight he carried. Looks like I just unlocked the first door. Jacob stood in front of the mirror in his private temple room. The walls were made of smooth crystal, but he could barely focus on the alien beauty of the place. His wrists still glowed, symbols shifting like liquid gold under his skin. He had washed it, scrubbed it, even tried covering it with bandages. Nothing worked, no matter what he did. The marks grew. Every time he closed his eyes, he could hear the whisper of that language. Not from books, not from his memory. From somewhere inside him, Sarah entered quietly, holding a small silver bowl. This will help numb the pain.
There's
no pain, Jacob said. Just ... pressure. Like something under the skin is trying to get out. She dipped her fingers in the bowl and gently touched his wrist. Her hand trembled slightly. These symbols, she said softly. They weren't just used for speaking. They were binding seals meant to tie power to flesh. Jacob raised his eyebrow. So I'm carrying some ancient spell? No. She said, you're carrying a message. A living one. Passed through time and blood. Maybe even ... not human blood. He looked at her sharply. What do you mean? Sarah hesitated. Then she took a deep breath. Long ago, before our worlds split, there were rumors of mixing between humans and highborn aliens. Forbidden unions, blended bloodlines. That knowledge was erased. Jacob blinked. You think I'm part alien? I think Sarah whispered, you're not just translating the dead language, you're remembering it. Hours later, Jacob was taken to the temple Arkiva place. Few were allowed to enter. Inside, enormous stone tablets hovered in the air, spinning slowly. The walls pulsed with light, as if reacting to his presence. The high elders and the keeper of the vault stood waiting. A glowing tablet floated down toward Jacob, without touching it. He began to read out loud, when the marked one returns. The stars shall open, and the blood of the ancients shall rise again. The room dimmed. The walls echoed with sound. A holographic figure ancient, armored and regal appeared before him. Its face was hidden, but its voice rang out in both alien tongue and English. You bear the code, the map, the voice, the key. You are the last vessel of our oath. Everyone stared at Jacob in stunned silence. He whispered, Why me? Human. The keeper finally spoke. Because the ancients chose your kind? Or maybe ... your kind was theirs all along. Suddenly, the ground shook. An alert rang through the temple. An alien soldier burst in. Inquisitors have arrived, from the outer spires. They demand the human be handed over. Sarah's face turned pale. The Inquisitors, they're destroyers. Guardians of silence. They erase anything that threatens the order of history. Jacob looked at his hand again. The symbols now formed a complete sentence. I think, he said slowly, they've already found out what I unlocked. The keeper turned to the elders. We cannot protect him here. He must leave. Go where? Sarah asked. The keeper pointed to the glowing star map hovering behind them. To Vorthilan. The lost system. The place he was marked to find. Jacob looked at the map. The system blinked like a red warning light in the blackness of space. I came here as a linguist, he said. Now I'm being sent on a quest written in my blood. The keeper nodded. You carry more than words, Jacob Ryder. You carry the voice of the ancients. That night, as they prepared to escape through secret tunnels beneath the temple, Sarah approached Jacob with something small and glowing in her hand. A gift, she said. From my grandmother. It's called a heart knot, a symbol of trust. She tied it around his wrist right next to the glowing marks. Jacob looked at her. You don't have to come with me. Sarah smiled sadly. Yes, I do. If this is the return of the ancients, then my people need to know the truth. All of it. Jacob nodded. Together they slipped into the shadows, fleeing a temple built to preserve silence, carrying a language designed to awaken stars. And somewhere, in the cold space above Zalara, something old ... was listening again. Asterisk, the temple doors didn't open, they vanished. Jacob and Sarah ran through the hollow stone tunnels beneath the sacred chambers, lit only by flickering blue fire pods clinging to the walls. Each step echoed like thunder in the silence. They could hear boots behind them, metal ones, Not the temple guards, something else. The Inquisitors had arrived. These weren't ordinary soldiers. The Inquisitors were feared across systems. Clad in black armor that shimmered like glass and shadow, they had only one duty: erase knowledge that threatened the balance. They didn't ask. They cleansed. And now they were hunting Jacob. Sarah pulled him into a side tunnel, breathing hard. This way, there's a hidden lift shaft at the end. Jacob followed, trying to ignore the glowing marks on his arm, now burning slightly. They pulsed with every footstep. His skin felt tight, as if the symbols were reacting to the danger. Or worse, leading him. A voice echoed behind them, mechanical and cold. Unauthorized life form. Violation of sacred order detected. Target must be silenced.
Oh.
Jacob swallowed. Tell me they're not programmed to shoot on sight. They're programmed, Sarah said, drawing a blade to erase history. The pair reached a dead-end door, so it seemed. Sarah slammed her hand against a carved panel. A rumble shook the wall, and part of the rock slid back, revealing a narrow lift platform. Go, she shouted. Jacob stepped on. She followed, but just as the platform began to descend, a dark figure dropped from above like a shadow, landed. In front of them, armored and faceless, an Inquisitor. Its voice boomed like iron scraping glass. Return the code. You are not the chosen. Jacob stepped back, his wrist flared. The symbols spoke without sound, and the Inquisitor flinched. Impossible. It hissed. You carry living script. Sarah lunged. Her blade sparked against the Inquisitor's armor. They fought brief, sharp, brutal. Sparks lit the tunnel. But just as the Inquisitor raised a crushing fist, Jacob stepped forward and shouted, a word from the ancient language, Valshotter. The mark on his wrist exploded in light. The Inquisitor was thrown. Backward by a force neither magic nor machine, it hit the wall and vanished into black mist. The lift plunged downward. Jacob dropped to his knees, gasping. What was that? Sarah stared at his glowing arm, now showing new glyphs. You didn't speak that, she whispered. The language spoke through you. The lift opened into darkness. An ancient chamber, long sealed. Dust hung thick in the air. A head stood. A single gate covered in glowing vines and cracked stone. This was the gate of passage. The last escape route built during the fall of the ancient empire. Few knew it still existed. Jacob stepped toward it, and the gate pulsed. A whisper echoed. Like a forgotten voice remembering its name, bearer of the code. The door awaits your truth. He raised his wrist. The symbols rearranged. The gate opened. Itself. Behind them, Sarah saw a new threat: multiple Inquisitor ships landing in the city above. The entire temple sector would soon be sealed off. We have to leave this world, she said. Jacob nodded. Where do we go? He looked up at the stars showing through the cracked roof. To Vorthulon. That's where your script wants to go, right? Jacob wasn't sure if he was ready, but something deep inside. Something older than him already was, outside the ruins. They rushed to an old shuttle hidden in the cliffs, long forgotten but still functional. Sarah activated the controls while Jacob stared at the growing symbols on his skin. They're not just a language anymore, he said. They're a map. They're thinking. The shuttle engines roared to life above. Black-winged Inquisitor drones circled like vultures when spotted them. Too late. The shuttle blasted into the sky as they broke through the clouds. The stars unfolded. Before them, peaceful, silent, beautiful. But in the distance, a system blinked red. Vorthulon. Sarah sat beside him in the cockpit. Do you know what we're flying into? Jacob looked at the marks now covering his arm and chest. Not. Yet he said, but I think whatever the ancients buried is waking up for me. The shuttle floated in silence, drifting beyond Zalara's orbit. Stars stretched across the black sky like silver scars. Inside the cockpit, Jacob sat still, his fingers tracing the glowing lines on his skin. The ancient symbols had grown from his wrist to his chest, forming a pulsing pattern that looked designed, not random, not natural. a language, live inside him. Sarah returned from the back of the shuttle with a data core and a worried look. "I've connected the navigation. It's locked on to Vorthulon." Jacob glanced at the map projection on the screen. The system was surrounded by red warning rings. Restricted, dead zone, forbidden. "Why was it sealed?" he asked. Sarah sat beside him, her voice low. Vorthulon was where the ancients vanished. They had cities floating above oceans of light, towers that could sing, machines that thought faster than stars. Then one day, everything there went silent, not destroyed, not attacked, just gone. "And now the marks want to take me there," Jacob said. "They don't want Jacob. They're guiding. That's worse." A soft chime echoed from the console. Jacob's marks glowed in response. Then, without warning, a 3D projection filled. The shuttle a full map of the ancient empire. Entire systems long forgotten blinked to life around them. Lines, connected stars, planets, even thought archives. At the center was a pulsing blue sphere, .vor, the land. But something strange happened. Next, a second map appeared, fainter, older, and incomplete. It overlapped with the current one. Jacob's marks pulsed faster, syncing the two together. Sarah's breath caught. That's the original star network, the one that only existed before the Great Silence. Jacob pointed to a glowing segment that's not even in your charts. "Is that a planet?" Sarah zoomed in. "No, that's a gate. Stargate buried inside Vorthulon's core." Jacob's head ached. His vision blurred. He heard whispers, not voices, but pieces of memory. Language. Something was speaking through him. Tirana. Shti. Kelendor. Suddenly, more symbols lit up on his chest. The map updated again. New routes appeared, shortcuts. Across space, bypassing jump stations and known wormholes. Sarah stared in disbelief. That's impossible. These are quantum paths. "We lost this science eons ago. I didn't draw them," Jacob said. "The language did." Sarah turned to him slowly. "Jacob, I think your body is becoming a living star map." They entered hyperspace. The view outside twisted into blue and white. Tunnels of speed, but the ride wasn't smooth. The shuttle shuddered. Warning lights flared. An AI voice whispered. "Temporal drag detected. Navigational field destabilizing." Jacob clutched his head. The symbols burned hotter. "It's pulling us off course." Suddenly, the shuttle snapped out of hyperspace, and there it was .vor the land. The system was silent, not just in sound, but in feeling. No signals, no lights. No movement, just dark planets orbiting a pale red star, like ruins floating in forgotten dreams. But on the third planet, something pulsed, a massive circular structure, half buried in dust and sand, glowing faintly. The Stargate, Sarah, whispered. "It's waking up," Jacob replied, "and I think it was waiting for me." They landed on the surface. The air was breathable, but unnaturally still. Like the planet itself was holding its breath. As they approached the ancient structure, the gate shimmered. Symbols danced across its stone rim. Jacob stepped forward. The marks on his body synchronized. Suddenly, a beam of light shot up from the center of the gate. Forming a spinning ring above them, images flashed inside its stars, planets, faces, machines, and then a human face. A woman's face. Jacob staggered back. That's my grandmother." Sarah's eyes widened. "You never said she was a linguist." "She wasn't," Jacob whispered. "She worked in an antique bookstore. But she always sang lullabies in strange words I never understood." Sarah turned toward him slowly. "Jacob, you didn't just stumble into this." He stared at the gate. "I think I've been on this path since I was born." Behind them, the wind picked up. Distant clouds twisted in impossible shapes. The Stargate spun faster, and then it spoke, not aloud, but inside them, the vault of origins may now open. Jacob took a step toward the gate. Sarah grabbed his arm. "If you enter that gate," she said, "you may not come back the same." Jacob looked at her, calm and certain. I don't think I was ever meant to stay the same. And with that, they stepped into the light. Asterisk, they didn't feel their bodies movingly the shift. 1 second, Jacob and Sarah stood beneath a starry sky. The next, they stood inside a vast chamber lit by a swirling sun at its center. Real sun, it didn't burn, it watched. The chamber floated in space, surrounded by spinning glyphs and endless black. No walls, no doors, no air. But they could still breathe. Jacob looked at Sarah. Where are we? She whispered. Inside the Stargate's mind. ... or memory. Above them, the glowing sun spoke in thousands of overlapping voices. Trial initiated. Language. Of the living, language of the dead. Only one who understands both may pass. Jacob's body stiffened. The markings on his skin lifted his flesh, floating in the air around him like fireflies made of script. Suddenly, the chamber changed. Stone steps rose from nothing. A single path led to a massive doorway with no keyhole, no handle, only words written in the ancient language. Jacob took a step. The steps responded. They rearranged themselves into sentences as memories. His fears, his questions all written. In glowing glyphs, he paused. It's making me walk through my own mind. Sarah couldn't follow. The force field stopped her. I'll be right here, she said. You just have to speak the truth. Jacob walked the path. Each step brought a new trial. A burning tree appeared, and a voice said, Name what dies but still speaks. Jacob answered, Memory. The fire dimmed. A child cried in the dark, speaking in a forgotten tongue. Jacob listened, then replied in the ancient language, You are not alone. The crying stopped. A door appeared. A mirror rose, showing Jacob's face, but alien, ancient, not human. Is this you? The voices asked. Maybe not before, Jacob said, but it is now. The mirror shattered and let him pass. Meanwhile, Sarah waited at the edge, heart pounding suddenly. The walls lit up with memories not Jacob's. Hers. She saw her grandmother teaching her to fear the dead language. She saw her people burning scrolls. She saw herself laughing when humans were called lesser. And now, a human stood where her ancestors had failed. Tears welled in her eyes. Maybe, she whispered, our silence was the real curse. Back on the path, Jacob reached the final gate. This one had no words, just silence, and then his own voice. Echoed, Jacob Ryder, do you choose to bind your voice with the ancient code? He hesitated, then nodded. I do. A beam of golden light struck his chest. Pain flared pure and sharp. Like language carving its truth into bone, the ancient mark seared into his skin permanently. Not glowing now, dash-branded. The gate opened, and he stepped into the core dot. Inside was not a machine, it was a being. A floating, radiant humanoid shape, made of starlight and script. You carry the breath of the lost, it said. But you do not steal. You understand, Jacob asked. What are you? I am the memory smith, the last voice of the true empire. And now, part of you. The being reached toward him. Their hands touched, and suddenly everything poured. Into Jacob's mind, a galaxy before division. Civilization that spoke with thoughts. It's a language that could build or destroy with a single phrase. And the reason it was hidden, it was too powerful to trust in one species alone. But now, Jacob was both. Human and touched by the ancients. He awoke on the chamber floor. The glowing sun faded. Sarah rushed to him. Jacob, are you okay? I looked up, eyes burning gold for a moment. Then, softly, I passed. She helped him up, and the chamber began to fall apart, not collapse, dismantle, returning to dust. Like a dream fading at dawn, as the Stargate closed behind them and they returned to their ship, Jacob whispered, It didn't teach me a weapon. It gave me a choice. Sarah looked at him. What choice? To speak, or to stay silent? To use this knowledge, or to protect others from it? And somewhere behind them, a voice echoed once more. The final trial is not in words. The stars over Vorthalon had changed. They didn't shine brighter. They pulsed, as if they had been holding their breath for centuries, and finally exhaled, aboard the small shuttle drifting just outside the ruined Stargate. Jacob Ryder sat quietly, staring at his reflection in the viewport. The golden symbols etched into his skin had stopped glowing, but they were still there like celestial veins beneath the surface. Sarah sat beside him, her hands folded. Her armor was dusty and her eyes tired, but her heart felt full. She had seen something impossible, human, shaped by a lost language, had passed a test meant for gods. A soft chime sounded from the console. A message broadcast in a strange tone flooded the screen. But Jacob didn't need a translator, he understood. At the moment it appeared, to those who listen with open hearts, the vault is no longer sealed. The echo has returned. Sarah leaned forward. Is that coming from the gate? Jacob shook his head slowly. No, he said. That's coming from every vault across the galaxy. The language woke them up. On distant worlds forgotten, temples lit up, statues began to hum, stone carvings, once dead, began to shift and glow. The ancient soar, at least their knowledge, were rising, and Jacob Ryder was the spark. Jacob, Sarah said softly, you need to tell them, all of them. Looked uncertain. I'm not a prophet. I'm not even a soldier. I'm just a translator. She gave a gentle smile. Exactly. You're someone who listens first, then speaks. That's what this galaxy needs now. Back in orbit above Zalara, the once hostile, High Council called for Jacob to return. But this time, he didn't arrive in chains. He landed with Sarah at his side. Walking through the gates not as a prisoner but as the key-bearer, crowds watched in silence. Some bowed. Others whispered in awe, but the elders stood firm, unsure, uncomfortable with what this meant. In the Hall of Echoes, Jacob stood alone at the speaking platform. His voice was calm but powerful. I didn't come here to rule. I came here looking. For stories, for lost words. And I found more than language. I found truth. He looked out at the silent faces. Your ancestors didn't vanish. They hid their voice, waiting for someone who wouldn't use it to conquer, but to connect. Glyphs on his skin flared, and his next words came out in both ancient and standard. The stars are not borders. They are bridges. Let's speak again. The chamber trembled. A golden pulse erupted from Jacob's body, harmless yet vast, flowing into the walls, the floor, and then out into the sky. All over the galaxy, those who had traces of ancient blood, even faint and forgotten, felt it. Children in villages, priests in broken temples, workers on old space stations. Something inside them stirred. A wordless recognition. The voice of the ancients was speaking again, and this time it spoke through many. Later, alone on a cliff above Zalara's capital, Jacob watched the night sky. Beside him, Sarah sat cross-legged, silent. She finally spoke. What happens now? He took a deep breath. Now we listen, and we teach. We heal what silence broke. Sarah nodded. And the Inquisitors. Jacob smiled faintly. The language has changed. Their power came from fear. But people don't fear words anymore. A shooting star blazed across the sky, except it wasn't a star. It was another vault opening. When a world thought lost, Jacob stood. The symbols on his body gently faded, not gone. It's just sleeping, waiting for the next voice, the next story, the next bridge. And as Sarah took his hand, one thing was clear. Humanity didn't just unlock